What does YouTube, Donald Trump, MTV, and JP Morgan Chase have in common? And how do they affect not only issues like immigration and national sovereignty, but also what kind of media you'll be allowed to consume in the near future? In a few short minutes, it'll all be explained. Attempting to brainwash the young to the cause of the far left has long been the purview of academia and especially the media, and there are sound financial reasons for doing so. But it's not working anymore. New media has broken the centralizing grip and influence vis-a-vis the Overton window that till just even a few years ago that those who fool you and those that rule you were fully in control of. But the establishment, the multinationals, the banking cartels, and their massive capital pools centered on the Northeast, as well as the mouthpieces they own, the mainstream media, are becoming increasingly worried about their grip over the narrative and, more importantly, the financial fallout growing populism will cost them. To understand this is to understand why populism, nationalism, and a unified country is spoken about with such utter contempt and disdain by the mainstream media. It is to understand why these things are a major threat to globalism and those groups that push it for their own financial gain. And they're now shaking. In 2010, for the first time, the viewing audience of ABC, CBS, and NBC all had median ages of 50 or higher, with CBS topping out at 55. Currently, roughly 45% of all ad-supported cable networks measured by Nielsen have median viewer ages of 50 or higher. It gets particularly bad when looking at channels like CNN that peddle in what, since the loss of the presidential election in November 2016 by Hillary Clinton, are called by Google, for example, authoritative news. People are turning away from all the old forms of media, newspapers, magazines, TV, even Hollywood. They've been turning to platforms like YouTube for a while now, especially the young. Thus, the current demonetization crisis that is basically threatening to destroy Google's video platform was to be expected. There are two main reasons for this. Obviously, old media wants a piece of Google's ad revenue. And for an in-depth look at this, please see the great video over at Computing Forever. The other and more sinister is that YouTube is having a real effect on shifting, as stated before, the Overton window, and how this shift is reigniting the anti-globalism that the corporate media and especially their bot news teams are paid to suppress through lopsided coverage, omission, and sometimes, as was clear to all with eyes to see and ears to listen, outright lies, as was very obvious during the 2016 presidential election. This shift can be seen with not only Brexit and the spectacular defeat of Hillary Clinton, despite all of the controlled media's blatant bias reporting, but also the rise all over Europe of populism and the cause of nationalism, and the real pushback rejecting globalism and its accompanying accoutrements, not least its rabid speech codes, curtailments of personal liberty, and mass uncontrolled immigration of people from totally incompatible countries. For the banking cartels, nationalism and the rising support of it must be stopped at all cost, and I will explain this as we go. Platforms like YouTube that provide people, especially the young, with a perspective not articulated by a mainstream media controlled by corporate interests is a major threat in upending the current and manufactured paradigm. The establishment and corporate-controlled old media with its billion-dollar industries is not going to just sit back and wait for the inevitable without a fight, as they lose eyeballs and market share to what they see as random pests with a webcam. Pests who are not only stealing their customers and money, but also their influence. Thus was born the term fake news in November 2016 and the establishment's drive to rid the internet of its competition. It's not only doing this via constant saturation of the term via the controlled media, but it's leaning on governments to enact laws that punish platforms for hosting what they deem as fake news. Recently, Google said that it was making sweeping changes to the algorithm behind its powerful search engine to demote misleading, false and offensive articles online. Google is also setting new rules, encouraging its raters, the 10,000 plus staff that assess search results, to flag web pages that host hoaxes and conspiracy theories, all of which I might add is very subjective. The company will also be weeding out what it calls low-quality content, which I might add again is extremely subjective. Moreover, they are in the process over at YouTube to basically purge the community of any content that is not G-rated and family-friendly. This is being accomplished via demonetization and what is called restricted mode. Restricted mode is placing entire channels that YouTube considers controversial behind a wall where the videos cannot be found unless a user is signed in and over 18 years of age. However, this isn't being done to protect viewers from content. It's being done because of, you've got it, money, and the cultural shift that a free flow of ideas can enable, and the profits that could potentially be lost by the corporations should a shift away from globalism occur. The young and those just awaking aren't consuming and absorbing the corporate narrative as they did in the past, and they're just not buying it. A very good example of this is Francesca Ramsey and her show Decoded that is posted on the official MTV YouTube page. Her videos follow a very simple script that focuses on white privilege, white racism, white supremacy, as well as a dash of white patriarchy. Interestingly, these videos only garner 10 to 20,000 views on a channel with 1.6 million subscribers. Her videos only exist at this point to be lampooned, with the comment section quickly descending into a swamp of contempt for her content. Her video dislike to like ratio is regularly 20 to 1, and this is not the work of trolls, because she barely even has an audience. Social commentary that is being consumed is more and more about ridiculing the worldview that MTV, CNN, the Wall Street Journal, and the rest of the corporate-controlled media attempt to frame. Few believe them anymore, few trust them, and even fewer and fewer buy into the social engineering and guilt they have peddled for the past several decades. Old media is on the ropes, but they're not out yet. 6 companies basically own 90% of the media in the United States and provide you with the illusion of choice. While each of these individual companies' fortunes will wax and wane, it's essential to know that no matter the outcomes for these individual behemoths, they are all owned by the same capital pools. Search any one you like and you'll see over and over and over again, they're all controlled by the same institutional investors. All of them. Take a look at GE, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. The funny thing here is, though, Alphabet, the parent company of Google, is also owned by the same capital pool companies that the old media is. Coincidence? No, it's not. And here is the thing. Look up any large player in any industry. Look up car companies, pharmaceuticals. Your imagination is your only limit. Walmart, Ford, PepsiCo. Look up any large company in the US and you'll see that no matter who wins, Pepsi or Coke, McDonald's or Burger King, Apple or Google, Vanguard, BlackRock, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, and the same institutional investors that show up on these sheets over and over and over again will always be the winner, as the same large pools of capital own both sides of both sides. And this is why nationalism and a unified country is such a threat to these corporations. Nationalism endangers profits as it has the potential to interfere with the indiscriminate importation of millions of culturally unassimilatable people, as well as capital movement and free trade. The reasons for why this is the case I go into in great detail in a previous video, which you can watch by clicking on the card here. But to put it simply, we don't need mass immigration to shore up the Ponzi schemes of the welfare state, supplement our population because of a declining birth rate, or any of the other rationales that have been debunked many times over. The main reason immigrants are imported is because the existing population in the West is maxed out on debt. Car loans, student loans, renovation loans, business loans, mortgages, credit card debt. The average consumer in the US is up to their eyeballs in debt. Trying to get people to carry more debt in the US is like trying to wring water from a stone. Consumers in the US and most other countries in the West, especially Canada, are tapped out. We live in a debt-based economy. Money is created via fractional reserve banking, or, put simply, when a bank approves a loan. Each migrant coming is either a new customer for the debt machine or a dependent on the state. Either way, new money will be created and allow this scheme to continue. The same is true for the movement of capital and free trade agreements, but for different reasons beyond the scope of this presentation. Despite the potential for unbridled globalism to destroy the social fabric of countries like the US, the banking class via their bought and paid for political class will push for ever more globalism and ever more open borders. The election of Donald Trump and his nationalist message was a broadside to the banking cartels and the transnational corporations. His election, however his policies take shape, was not even seen as a possibility by the corporate-controlled media. Once you realize that the establishment sees you as a profit-producing asset, it's then you'll realize that servicing debt to the large capital pool companies is what the majority of Americans exist to do. YouTube is in the midst of change, and it's going to reemerge, I think, as a PG platform filled with videos of cats and cosmetic tutorials, as well as the mainstream media companies and their pre-approved content that continues to push the familiar narrative of the past several decades. What the Wall Street Journal and other old media companies have done in an attempt to destroy YouTube by depopulating it via cutting off content creators' revenue streams is just the opening salvo in this new media war. But in the end, it won't matter which individual companies win or lose, as the people really making money from this, the institutional investors, will make it one way or another. Thanks for watching. If you like this kind of material, please consider supporting this channel via Patreon or a one-off donation via PayPal, as YouTube revenue has basically collapsed to zero and this channel is now almost 100% fan-funded. If you're not in a position to support this project, please subscribe, like, comment, and share these videos. And as always, find me on the usual social media and check out the website blackpigeonspeaks.com for more interesting information like this.